everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of Demystifying Customer Experience and Contact Centers, where our goal is to clarify the hot topics and confusion in this space. I'm your host, Rufino Chung, the Practice Director for CX and Contact Centers here at UiPath in Europe. And this is a very special episode that we recorded at a Forward conference in Las Vegas in October of 2024. This is a fireside chat with one of our esteemed partners, qBotica, where we aim to demystify the role of agentic in contact centers, demystify the CX tech stack, and also to demystify the pitfalls and best practices in implementation. So, without further ado, let's take you to Las Vegas.
Okay, so we're going to continue on with our next session. This will be a fireside chat with qBotica. So qBotica is one of our esteemed partners, and specifically for this session, we'll talk about 3 topics. Firstly, we'll talk about what are some of the key trends that they're seeing in the world of CX and contact centers. Number 2, obviously about agentic. And number 3, also get their perspective on what are the pitfalls and best practices for implementation. So with that, please welcome onto the stage, Mahesh and Hugh.
See. Thank you.
So you may have noticed that Mahesh and I were smiling because for the last month, I was practicing how to pronounce his last name. I chickened out, unfortunately. But Mahesh, you can say yourself. All right, so let's begin with a quick introduction about your background as well your role. Let's start with you, Mahesh.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rafino. What a great conference, right? Okay, I'm Mahesh. Yes, that's right. You need more shout-outs. Okay, I'm Mahesh, the CEO and founder of qBotica, and I am a technology and an AI evangelist, right? So when I'm not at the cricket ground or playing pickleball, I'm actually not working in my little den. I'm out there evangelizing AI and technology at schools. Actually, I teach 2nd graders to 6th graders now and then, every quarter, in my local school. And then I'm on the board of ASU on the technology and entrepreneurship management stuff and mentor students, kind of like get onto the entrepreneurship journey. And I'm also on the board of FBLA and the Northern Virginia Community College. If you see the trend, I like to work with, kids, and people that are really earning to do, getting the technology world and the entrepreneurship world. That's what about me.
So basically, you should win the Nobel Prize.
No. I'm just encouraging others as well to get out of that den and do more. Yes.
And Hugh, will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Rufino. So interesting story for me is I've been a customer consuming UiPath in the front office in the contact center. I've also been a UiPath employee for several years. I was running the CX practice here in UiPath. And now I'm a partner, and we're focusing not just on CX, but it's a core capability for us. And what's been interesting in what goes back to essentially 30 years of contact center exposure is what we're seeing right now is fascinating. We really have a huge, genuine opportunity to move the needle when it comes to a customer interaction. So my role is to really identify where those opportunities are, help our customers to categorize them, help them to quantify them, and most importantly, help them to execute them really, really quickly.
So Hugh, welcome home, first of all.
Feels that way.
Let me ask you, how does it feel coming back to Forward, but this time as a partner?
It's a great question. And I was reflecting actually on the last, I think this is my 6th Forward. It genuinely feels, and I think there was mentioned in the keynote yesterday that, when you look at the start of RPA and what is now really the start of the next generation of automation with agentic, it does genuinely feel like it's a fundamental change. And when we look at CX, that gets much more exciting, I think, because when you look at agentic and persona-based automation, I think that's so important when you look at the role of the contact center agent, just to confuse matters, but the role of that customer service representative and how they could be influenced by that real-time data in context to assist them really with servicing the customer at that level.
Well, again, Hugh, welcome back.
Thank you.
And Mahesh, in addition, I have to ask, in addition to being a future Nobel Prize winner, can I ask, just because you are the CEO and founder, maybe a quick word about the origins of qBotica as well as your vision for the company?
Yeah, that's great. So I used to work for a very large company managing about $300 million worth of their business, like literally, every quarter just counting numbers and all that. I got bored with it. Like I said, I'm a technology evangelist, so I wanted to really get off that and, create technology, make impact, give real outcomes to my customers. So instead of just, creating an FTE-based company or just a software that I'm going to just, not understand how it's being adopted, I wanted to kind of really create a company that can actually deliver both the value of, a service and a software. So I created an automation as a service platform. And while going through that, and as much as playful and passionate I am, some people see that as problematic as well. So, like investors, I didn't get enough money. So I created a nice, framework and a nice team and a talent to drive that vision. But instead of building the software, actually work with UiPath to kind of really be that underpinning of our offerings. So we have our own offering called Document AI, as well as, we provide automation as a service, which is actually powered by UiPath. So that's kind of what we do at qBotica, and that's the reason I started this, was because I think the old model of technology outsourcing, it's completely dead, and it's dead rather, and we wanted to make a change in the enterprises.
Well, a very noble goal. Let's shift to the world of CX, and Hugh, 30 years of experience. Let me ask you, even compared to, let's say, 2 years ago, what are you seeing as the big changes in the world of CX and contact centers?
I love Dan's comment earlier about the magpie effect, about, there's an abundance of tech. There's no shortage of that. So I think there's an absolute recognition that the customer has changed. The way that they want to be serviced and interact with the brand is fundamentally changed. We all have our own expectations of being, solved and serviced immediately. Plus, I think the role of the contact center has changed in the fact that it is perceived more as a revenue center in terms of to try and drive brand advocacy, brand loyalty. So you've got this fusion of evolving technology, evolving customer, and together with that, the complexity of heavily regulated, complex environments. So what we're seeing now is a huge opportunity to drive out those simple tasks to self-service, as we've seen and talked about earlier. What's left, heavily regulated, complex revenue drivers, and that genuinely needs some phenomenal support. When you're coupling that with large attrition, large churn in these environments, huge staff turnover, having to constantly battle, train, backfill, and of course service that need. So it's the here and now, and it's definitely at that point where technology is heavily going to influence the human.
And Mahesh, just to build on that, clearly more complexity, greater demands from customers, greater demands and pressures on the representatives, the call center reps. What's your approach and perspective in terms of the mindset shift we need in terms of how we enable the call center representatives?
I think, great question, Rafino. I think the first thing is, we need to kind of let AI guide us. I keep saying this, to people that, to an extent, in some of those flows, I think having those, we have actually at the point of service, we have so rigid rules that when we talk to some customer service, call centers or kind of the companies, you call them for a changing ticket, or how many times have you felt like? It doesn't mean logical at all, the answer that's being given, because they are guided by those rules, and also to an extent they're guided by the system restrictions out there. I think we need to kind of break them, first of all, and to kind of even start to break them, we need to kind of really have that mindset that the technology is here to kind of really take hold of that particular situation, and it can adapt, and it can actually help that agent to kind of make that right decision. In fact, you have the agent himself. If it's completely illogical, if something is saying, if it's hallucinating, or if it's saying something wrong, then he's there. But most times, if we have that ability to kind of really let the AI guide us. And the other thing is, we are seeing the traditional automation systems, are a bit clunky, or the agent has to actually, apart from the skill levels that they have today, they have to learn one more thing and remember how to do things and all that. So we need to have a natural interface like a web browser, or to put a plugin, autopilot type of interface, right, where it's natural for them to interact with that particular system, and then where it will not only guide them into what to say. I know that some of those applications at the front office kind of really be there telling them, oh, you have to say this, you have to say this, prompt them, prompts. It's basically lots of prompts at their screens, but it needs to also take the action, right? It needs to complete that action as it says, okay, this is what the next step is. And they say, do you agree? Or, do you want to proceed? And then yes, and then it go and do that action and help facilitate that. You can do a lot more. Today, we know they take notes and then the action is done after the call, right? Really, there is no the resolution really happening at that point. It's happening after the call. So what if we actually the after call resolution, or the execution of that particular aspect, fulfillment of that action, is done through bots, right? Most of us use attended bots at the back office that's fulfilling it. How do we surface this? How do we actually make it happen? And so my, philosophy is like, just not what to say, but also act on it. And also I'm talking about, a combination of action, which is the RPA piece of it. It's there at the back office, put it at the front. Add an element of intelligence. It's already there today, right? Using some element of intelligence, whether it's OCR, IDP type of comms mining, or kind of NLP based stuff that's out there. But and I would say add the mastery to it. Allow the AI to be the master. So that should be the aim. That's where the acronym is.
So I think definitely the concept of say and do.
Yes.
And you also mentioned a number of technologies that can enable us. Obviously, very complicated with tech stack in terms of many different vendors, systems, applications. And Hugh, could you perhaps maybe simplify that for us to demystify the tech stack?
Simplify is an interesting word because it's complex in the sense of, let's look at the evolution first of all. We've seen this huge shift in not a huge amount of time from what was traditionally IVR now through to we're seeing, bedding in of chatbots and speech analytics, but really at quite a short period of time moving to this, conversational AI enabled and agentic movement. And together with that, the customer expectations changed dramatically, and it's continuing. So it's becoming more complex. Customer patience expectation is shortening, and of course the technology is compounding. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is we're seeing three core technology sets. We're seeing conversational AI or self-service, so your NLP, your ability to drive that autonomous service, top left. We're seeing CCaaS vendors who are delivering some really powerful capabilities around routing and IVR and analytics reporting and a number of other functional elements. But what we're not necessarily seeing mainstream is where the automation set sits in this stack. And when you pull these together and look at that central point, you're really driving that agentic capability. You're able to drive proactive interaction. And if you see where CCaaS and the automation vendors overlap, and I'm certainly not going to steal Robert's thunder on the CX Companion demo later, but it's absolutely about agentic desktop automation. It's about driving that. It's emulating the human. It's how do you drive a much more enabled contact center representative? How do you present the next best action, not just the recommendation, but the trigger to action? How do you drive more customer loyalty, provide the insights on that customer to assist them immediately and resolve that at the first point of contact? So purposely what's not in this CRM, ERPs, we're seeing that wrap around the edge. This is really about customer engagement, customer contact, and where automation fits in and where you can really derive some considerable value, and recognizing that the majority of you in this room have that capability in your business today. And my experience is that the front office is always a part of the organization that is either too big, too scary, or quite frankly, too complex to try and tackle. Just the reassurance that if you do, there's huge opportunities for you to unlock some considerable value within that business.
So thank you, Hugh, for sharing and simplifying the tech stack for us. I think we have time for one more question, and I'll give it to both of you. Hugh, we'll continue with you. Tell us, what do you see as the biggest sort of risks and pitfalls for implementation?
So the first one, and it's come up earlier today, is trying to solve all problems, trying to solve 100% of the problem. You know, you're going to spend the majority of your time solving that last 10%, which quite frankly is not necessarily cost effective. Or when you look at some of the more complex queries, a human should potentially interact with that and really understand the context of it. So it's really look at 80-90% of your opportunities, this huge efficiency. And when I mean efficiency, I'm not just talking about AHT reduction, it's assurance, quality assurance, compliance, first contact resolution, and a metric that's quite contemporary is customer effort. Huge advocate of the customer effort score. You know, try and solve for those key metrics. The second is interaction with those performing the task when you're building your automation. So, and it's a confusing statement now, but I often say build for agents, built by agents for agents, agents in the concept of a customer service representative. So involving those individuals who do the job, it's critical. They're all doing the role very differently, probably providing the end results or similar end results. When interacting with those individuals, you're emulating them. That's precisely what you're doing. The adoption is considerable, it's fast, and you have a real strong culture within the organization to continue to automate new tasks. So, you know, number one, don't boil the ocean. Number two is absolutely involve all stakeholders, bottom-up ideas. And the third is be explicit on your metrics and be very clear and concise on how you're measuring the impact. And I think there's a fourth, which is probably about discovery and depth of discovery. But it really all comes back to the listen, analyze, and act in terms of how you're able to execute.
And Mahesh, bring us home with some words of wisdom on implementation best practices.
Absolutely. I think we had some great stories before. I love Dan's story where he talked about how they actually went from 20% to 80%, and really kind of getting off the block. That's important. And when it comes to automation in the contact center, right, I still see as a industry professional that option is not that great. So the bad news is the time has passed, right? That you could have actually adopted, things could have moved further, like, leaders like Dan and others who had actually adopted it very well. They have actually they are going to be at the forefront of adopting the newer stuff that's coming. But the good news is things like agentic AI and Gen AI actually change the game for all of us, right? So you don't need to create complex models to kind of really go and innovate in that space. So I think kind of latching on to this at this point, and those who have really lagging behind or kind of wanted to kind of let somebody like to be more late followers of technology and all that, I would say that it's time is here. I think the technology is here. Get off the block. I think we can implement, and the cost of doing this is actually and trying it is much lesser. The impact is much lesser. You could actually go to market within a month. Sometimes you don't have to wait for a year-long implementation and you're worried about it. So here the implementation timeframes are very short. I think it's time to get started, and I think I know the questions about pitfalls of implementation, but I would say that start to kind of work on this technology is important, and I think focus on the impact, right? I think that's another piece, right? The impact, measuring that impact, and understanding it early on, and kind of really go for it, I would say.
So a combination of get started now,
yes,
but also don't boil the ocean.
Yes, exactly. Yes, simple problem.
Just boil an egg.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you very much, both Mahesh and Hugh, for your time.
Thank you.
Also for your very visible presence throughout Forward these past few days, and also the great work you did on the CX Companion, which we'll introduce in a minute. But before we do that, thank you very much. A round of applause for Mahesh and Hugh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us for episode number 3. See you next time for our upcoming episodes where we'll aim to discuss demystifying the role of AI and automation in contact centers, and to also continue the conversation to demystify the data from voice of the customer.